I am the creator of Black Urbanist. This is the newsletter I do every week. This is the video version of it. So if you've managed to find me and don't already know what I do or what I've been doing, this is my newsletter. Um, I'm live on Instagram as well as all my other platforms. So you're going to see me go through two screens because it's a two different screens I'm literally looking at. So I'm going to try to look at y'all, but I want to shout out. I'm going to wave at some of my Instagram folks that have come by. And so, yeah, I want y'all to know there is a written version of this. If you go to theblackurbanist.com, click on view the newsletter. That's one place you can go. If you're already on the subscription list, you can just go in your email. Some of y'all are double, triple subscribed even, and I appreciate that. Feel free to just unsubscribe from like extras. Like I know different people like different platforms, like different spaces. So that's why there's a lot of multiples here because I want to make sure I hit everybody with the word wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And I also am doing this version so that way I can reach people in multiple ways. As far as I can tell, this is captioned on all platforms that it's supposed to be captioned on. I think lives aren't quite captioned live, at least on Instagram, but I think on YouTube there should be, you should be able to set the caption. It's of course imperfect, but we're working with it, and that's what I wanted to talk about this week is really how I personally, not just me ragging at y'all, not just me yelling at y'all know I do that enough. I wanted to talk through what I have been doing as I'm still treating this like we're in an acute pandemic. And I will note this, I did not include this article in this morning's or this afternoon's really newsletter, but those of you who have access to the Washington Post, they have published an article saying that, in fact, looking across the country, looking at the data they've looked at, other than and during major surges, white folks are dying in higher numbers from COVID than black folks. And of course, there's so many other things that we're dying from. Of course, many of you all who are transportation folks that watch my platform definitely don't think I'm not watching that. Our car wreck numbers have gone up, our pedestrian and bike crashes have gone up. I think, you know, if we think that we're not being affected by what's happening right now with all the different elements, I've heard many people say that we're in multiple pandemics, and that's very true. Like racism, ableism, like all these things are things that are affecting us. And so next week, of course, I'm going to go, or maybe not, of course, next week I'm going to get back to like really breaking down system change and what we need to see. But this week I really just wanted to kind of focus on two things I've been doing. So if you have looked at my main Instagram scroll, if you've opened up the paper newsletter, or if you happen to see just some of the other pictures folks have posted of me at DC Design Week, or maybe you saw me in person, all of those things are up there. Also, I want to try to keep these up to 15 minutes, so I'm definitely going to go ahead and talk about some of the things I included. So main thing this week was it's been a minute since I've been out on the trail. You know, I have been, even though I've been right here, working right here at this desk on the top in the corner of my bedroom, our bedroom, I have been obviously editing for Greater Washington. I'm getting ready to get on another call in about 45 minutes to do another project. And then of course I had this vision to create this crochet group. And one of the things that has helped me with abundance is thinking about what I can do. And one of those things that I can do is get really good at several of my hobbies. For some of you all, that's, okay, I'm going to read all the books I've never read. Okay, I'm going to master a yoga technique with maybe virtual yoga, because that is something that has been troubling. So many of us have gone back to quote unquote normal. But I'm gonna pause on that, and I'm gonna talk about what I've been personally doing this week. For me, it has been, I still go to, because some of you all have seen me outside. You're like, well, I thought you weren't going outside, Kristen. That's absolutely not the case. And how are you letting less outside? I'm like, you might have noticed that we tend to carry these. You tend to see us with this on our faces, especially if we are not outdoors. And I think, yeah, there's definitely, these are not the most perfect solution by any means, but this is a huge and working solution. And this allows more people to be in spaces. And I really do think, and I'm not going to back down on this, that we have to consider the equity of making sure that people have what they need. I had wanted to have an ASL interpreter at my Sunday night event. Unfortunately, I could only get a request for that to happen. So when that happens, I want to encourage folks who are allies to step up and put a request in for an ASL interpreter. Uh, See if you can caption, live caption. If you are an interpreter, please do so. And likewise, if you are able to if you're able to do, please do. Just, that is my thought pattern around this. Because there's so many people that could, I feel like, and I had just seen a block before I got on this. I saw a block saying that if you have a phone, if you got the internet, if you're in the house, because you can create that, there's an extra mandate for those of us to show up. I was on I've been on and off the Black Policy Lab panel. I'm going to head back to that after I do this little recording here. I was on a faith and disability panel earlier today. And just for many of us who ascribe to like Christianity, and even honestly, like pretty much all major faiths and belief practices, there's this thing about being there for people who are the least of, or perceived the least of. Even that kind of is privileging language. But being there for people and helping out. And so as much as I can go out to the Wilson Bridge Trail, as you saw, that's where I'm at. I'm on the Wilson Bridge Trail on the rock platform there. I started going there in June of 2020. Now, for the longest time, I didn't just even leave the house. When we were in deep shelter in place, I literally stayed up in this house, oftentimes not leaving this room. Like, I'm like, okay, snow day, extended snow day, quarantine. Okay, give me my books, give me my laptop. Okay, I'm gonna sleep in. Okay, we're gonna get our delivery. We're gonna hunker down. So people that absolutely have to be out there, so the healthcare system, so all those folks can have space to do what they need to do. So that was my thought pattern around like early lockdown. A lot of us were there, but over time, of course, we've all stretched out and it's all been different. And a lot of y'all I know are like, okay, well, I got it anyway. Like, why would I like still be doing stuff? Yeah. Somebody else mentioned last night when I was at Stitch Group that there's they're not getting the same amounts of information. That's honestly not unheard of. There is this energy around getting us back to where we were 100% in 2019, even though this is a once in a generation health crisis where the entire world is figuring out how to manage a particular airborne illness. So of course it's not the same. Like we can do new things. And so for me, this week in the newsletter, I wanted to talk particular about, trail walking, about creating this crochet event with DC Design Week. And I'm so thankful that they work with me to have these, the room, the masks, of course, Sweet Pea folks. I thank y'all so much for the kit. The kit was amazing. And I'm looking forward to doing more of it because I'm also have a residency at Eaton. I've been kind of laying low because, of course, cases, not, even though I probably, like, from what it looks like, I could, in theory, lay down and go to sleep and rest it off. But that's the other thing. There's so much variance into how this hits people. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how this will affect my body. And I'm allowed to make those choices as an adult to say, okay, if people are giving me tools to say, okay, well, you could avoid doing this because there's already enough. There's already enough out here that I can't avoid. And I think what I just want us to think about, what I want to keep doing is my part. Because I know there's so much I can do. Like, I can put this mask on and then my hairdresser can dye my hair because we're both masked. I can go to the grocery store at an odd hour. I can go, let's go to the movies, and oftentimes she goes at off hours. Like, we can meet you all on patios. We can meet y'all sitting down inside with a mask on. But I mean, there's things we can do. But then I also want to shout out and honor the folks who couldn't get vaccinated, who are super immunocompromised. They absolutely have to be careful. Like, I don't feel like it's fair that we got to cut them off from the world and pretend that this is they weren't part of the world because it's something that just blew in through the air. It would be like if someone was in a wreck and they didn't plan it, like somebody was rear-ended or they were hit coming off a bus or on their bike and they survived. Are we going to cut them off because they can't move anymore? You know, I have family that has had who are paralyzed, and they're wrestling through what that looks like now and the places that they can't go and the things they can't do, but their brain is still there. And I think we have to think about that. And we have, as we're going forward, we have to practice universal design. So this part is for my design world people. It just looks wild that we're out here as if the pandemic never ended, and yet people on the front lines are still at risk of contracting multiple times and their body weakening more and more, and other illnesses, because we've kind of moved on from protection, frontline protection, providing frontline resources. The health communities, those of y'all, just because you can open up doesn't mean you should. I mean, I'm glad that I still go to Kaiser and we mask, because who knows what's going on. And I personally would hate that if I didn't have a mask on and I was just sneezing and coughing, that I would give someone some illness. Like, that's been a concern in years past, and I'm glad that we now have adoption of PPE on a regular basis. I'm glad that we are bringing up the need to have multiple forms of communication. These are good things. And to me, that is abundance. To be able to do all we can do to protect other people. Not some folks have a lot of money and some folks have a little, and some folks have a little help and some folks have a lot of help. But to be able to continue our growth and our abundance. That's the theme of this week, really showing you all what I've been doing. Two things I've been doing. In addition to, of course, yes, I'm going to the store. I'm going to certain events. I do one-way mask, but it is difficult. And honestly, I would, even if it's not the entire room or the congregation, if it's possible, I would like to see us still mask on stage. I would still love to see us mask in debates. I would still love to help our children, or if you're in a room with children, especially at the schools, let's see what's going on with these windows and doors so that the kids don't just have to be out here. Because we know kids can be busy. We know the whole masking thing has got to be something for them. But I can only imagine what this would have looked like for me 30 years ago in kindergarten. To have something like this, it wasn't just a flu. I mean, I had, I forgot to mention in the newsletter that I did have chickenpox. This was pre-chickenpox vaccine. So there was a week in first grade that I was dealing with the itchiness, and I was out of school for that, in addition to the times I was out of school with flus and the time my face swelled up that I talk about in the print newsletter, or the written newsletter. So yeah, I'm also going to be doing more of those crochet workshops, because I have this passion as part of the Black Queer Feminist Urbanist ethic for me in person here in DC, to have more workshops, craft workshops, teaching people how to do like the basics so people can understand supply chains, where their clothes come from, where their furniture comes from, where their food comes from. I want to shout out the Forge, their leader stepping down. I had mentioned that on LinkedIn, and I know this is streaming on LinkedIn, so if you happen to be watching that, shout out to you and your work. And of course, Open Works and all these other maker spaces, folks that help people who live in urban areas like Baltimore, like Greensboro, and other places reconnect with how stuff is made. It's one of those things where you can obviously do that mass, and many of those activities you do need to wear that's why we had N95s in the first place, because you don't want to paint, and P100s, because you don't want to paint, you don't want to dye yarn. There is something called brown lung that many people in the textile factories had, because they were constantly in a cloud of dust. So it's not like I want us to get back to doing things that make it dangerous, but just understanding the process, understanding and being concerned, and honoring those that we know, myself, less others that need extra support in making sure that our respiratory systems aren't in trouble. There's a lot of misinformation around like diets and body sizes and everything. And there's also a lot of misinformation about whether or not a mask is effective. Um, Lowering your personal viral load is still possible and it's still very important. And even if nobody else is doing it, and of course, I heard people saying peer pressure and everything. We're adults. Um, you don't want to be at home with something that you can't shake when doctors across the world are telling people, right, the answer is try not to get it or try to get it only once. That is what many doctors with the World Health Organization and other nations are saying. Of course, some of us have moved on because we're like, well, how can we not move on, and how can we balance in person, and how can we balance this? So the holidays are coming up. I know one side of my family is looking at getting a tent. I know that they are selling heat lamps and tents, and in some places, some of y'all can go outside in November and not freeze. Or maybe like just move the family reunion to a warm month, so that way y'all can have that connection point. Um, Move worship, move yoga, move meditation, move the holiday market, which some of them are outside. Some of the Christkindle markets and holiday markets are outside anyway. So we've done this before. And if you are in a position to purchase supplies, whether it's personal protective equipment, coats, hats, scarves, or make them, think about that. If you are in a position to mandate how your city uses resources, your city's building codes, your city's outdoor seating, all of those things, please, please, please think about how you can do that. I want to end this today to tell y'all this is not about me trying to rag on y'all, sitting on a high horse, thinking that I got it made because I get to sit in the house all day and I don't have to be out here and I don't have to be this or that or the other. Many of us can do more than we think we can. And that's what I just want to drive home. And I wanted to theme this around abundance this week because there is abundance, and making sure that we have wellness for people. Like if there's tools for wellness, that we get them to people. Uh, some of the arguments, and especially in that Washington Post article, were about some people have been talking about like masking and social distancing as if they were talking about like, oh no, we don't want Obamacare. Like that's just for me. So this is more about what can you do? What can you do? Abundance isn't just money in your pocket. I think I mentioned before that Roxane Gay had said that if she could buy health, she would. And I think many of us would do that. I know many of us have relatives that we wish we could bring back. I know many of us wish, and it's a thin line between like ableism and taking care of yourself. So I want to invite us to sit with that. I want to invite us to sit with industrial complexes, which is why I linked to that particular link, and thinking about how even though some of us are doing social justice work, social justice isn't just racial justice, it isn't just queer gender sexuality justice, it's economic justice, it's housing justice, it's ability justice, it's thinking through all the ways we are biased. It is continuing not just to have one time of implicit bias training at work, it's continuing to have or your organizations is continuing to have the conversations with yourselves and others. And I know if you are privileged to hear the sound or read my words somewhere, then there's something you can do. But if it's just something you can't do today, don't beat yourself up. You know who you are. You know the limits. You know the limits of your body. And I want to encourage that. And I want to encourage the people in your life to support you, to be a full member of society. And that even if that means breaking down the systems of society that make it so that you're not a full human being. So that's it for this week. If you can or want to, you can click on the links in the various bios and description boxes and read through this whole newsletter. But of course, I know many of my community is also blind or low vision. So I wanted to give you a taste, a visual, a hearing taste of what I'm saying, in addition to being there for folks in the deaf, hard to hearing, and otherwise like brain fogged community that needs something written down. Oh yeah, and of course with these lives, don't feel like you got to look at me. That's why I don't have anything hardly on the screen besides a little bit of just context as to what we're talking about today. This is the version of the newsletter that you can just listen to or look at, but you don't have to look at it. You can just listen to it. Once it goes, and once I get done, you can pause it. I know I'm at 20 minutes now, and I said I was going to go just to 15, but you can pause it. Likewise, you can read the newsletter in pieces. I just want to be here for you. I want to encourage you. I want to know that I know many of you don't mean any harm, but we still need to be cautious and careful, especially as we get into the season where we have a lot of respiratory illnesses. Children's National Hospital in DC is full right now of children dealing with all kinds of respiratory issues. Other places don't even have hospitals anymore. Let's not get, let's find our ways of abundance, our activities, our safe activities. Let's just do a lot of them. And let's order the things we need to order, and let's get ourselves in order so that way we can all be humans. And as I said at the end of the newsletter, we can all be well. So until next time on this platform, but you want to see me in the meantime, I'm over at Chris Pattern, which is like my craft and sustainable fashion journey. All of my work is archived. Also, some of my speeches from the years that I was going out to the conferences is archived. And, you can reach out to me, the blackurbanist@gmail.com. Like, that's still answer, or Kristen at theblackurbanist.com. Either email goes to the same account. And if you, also, those of y'all, family and friends, y'all got my number. Text me. Let me know how y'all are doing. Let me know if I can be helpful. Let me know if there's something that I'm missing in this whole thing around still staying like stationary in the pandemic. But I do feel like I'm not missing a lot. I just think we need just to be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more careful, a little bit more mindful of how we're rolling out in these streets. So until next time.